Namaste, good morning, good afternoon, and good evening to the Sitecore community. From wherever you guys have joined, welcome. I will just wait for a couple of minutes. For more units to join, and we will start with the session. Okay, let's start. Welcome to yet another session from Sugin. This session is different from all the other sessions that has been conducted by Sugin. The reason being, all the speakers earlier on the Sugin, they were from different country, different premise. This, we call it a unique because our speaker is on premise right now with us. Let me introduce you to the speaker, Pratik Satikunvar. Hi, Pratik.
Hey, Bijesh, how are you?
I'm good. How are you?
Doing good.
Okay. So, Pratik, he's a senior web developer at Horizontal Integration, having 7 years of web development experience in .NET, DNI, and all other different CMS platforms. Today, he is going to share his knowledge about Sitecore XXA. So, without wasting any more time, let's go and have a deep dive into Sitecore SXA. Pratik, handing over the to you.
Thanks, Bijesh. So first of all, thanks to Sugin team for giving me this opportunity to speak to all of you, and especially thanks for all the attendees, especially from India, because it is difficult here and the festive season is going on, so it is difficult to keep joy aside and join the Sitecore session. But thank you for joining this event. So Introducing myself, my name is Pratik Satikunvar, as Brijesh said, and I'm having around 7 years of experience, and I'm currently working at horizontal integration in the office, and around from 4 years I'm working on the Sitecore. And today's topic is the Sitecore Experience Accelerator in action. And let me share and start the presentation. All right. So Sitecore Experience Accelerator is one of the key buzzword what we hear nowadays and introduce along with major other products. For example, we have Sitecore Commerce and social connectors and all those things. Along with that, we have Sitecore introduced one of the feature which is Sitecore Experience Accelerator, which we will be talking about. So let's start with the agenda of today's topic. So basically, today's topic will uncover the specific scenario to how to solve a problem, but it will enable you to deep dive into SXA and let's get started and do your hands work on SXA. So if we see the agenda of today's topic, it is first of all it is the basics of SXA. So in this part, we will be seeing what is SXA actually, why SXA is useful, and what are the benefits of it, and when is the best time to use the SXA. The second part is the installation part of the SXA. That's pretty straightforward installation SXA have, but still we will look into that, how to install and what are the other things to keep in mind. Then we have a comparison between a component-based architecture and SXA. So how these two terminologies is different and what are the main key difference between them. Then we will look into the main terminologies which we will generally and majority will speak while we speak the SXA. So those are Toolbox, grid layout, themes, page and partial designs, creative action, asset optimizer. And at the end, we will see the demo of the all thing which we have covered in this agenda. So we will not be switching between the agenda and presentation and the practical demo. So we'll see the demo at the end. So you might need to remember a few things throughout the presentations, and at the end of the presentation, when you go into the practical, you will realize and relate everything to the real world. So let's start with the basics of the SXA. So in the basic of the SXA, we have what is SXA, in which we are going to see what is the definition of the SXA, why to SXA, why we need to use SXA actually, what benefit it gives to us, and then what are the best scenarios where we can use the SXA. So starting with what is SXA. Yeah, so SXA is nothing but a module, just like a different module we have in the Sitecore portal websites, which we can download and integrate to our solution. For example, we have Commerce Connector, we have web form for marketers, and all those things. Similarly, SXA is a module. The sole purpose to introduce this module is to speed up the production of the websites and reuse the components, layouts, and the templates across a variety of sites, so that you do not need to build that per site and per project you are working on. You can use the inbuilt components, layouts, templates across a variety of sites. And as you can see on screen, SXA is not equal to a toolbox. So it is very easy to have this misassumption that SXA is equal to a toolbox. Because when we have not gone deep into the SXA, have not started hands-on on SXA, not installed in our local environment, we used to have that in mind that SXA is nothing but a set of components which is already built in Sitecore and which you can use from Toolbox and drag and drop into the Sitecore page, and that's it. But it is not that's it. Yes, of course, the SXA is the main integral part of the SXA. Toolbox is the main integral part of the SXA, but it is not the SXA. So that's need to keep in mind, because I was also having the same assumption at the beginning when I was about to start on SXA. So that's not the SXA, because SXA have a different complete package of design, structure, data, and all this comes with the Helix principle. So what the SXA gives us, it gives us out-of-box component library, which you can access from the Toolbox. You can have the global and local data source support. You can have extended experience editor support with a drag and drop. You can have the wireframe design, Helix-based architecture, and increase in productivity by working in parallel. That's what SXA gives us. So let's talk about why and what is the benefit of SXA. So as you can see, this is the traditional pattern what we follow in the software development lifecycle, not especially for the Sitecore, but in general, what we'll talk more about for specifically to Sitecore here. So at the starting of the process, it starts with the user experience, where the user experience team designs some sketches and all those things for the client. They get feedback from there and finalize the sketches and everything. But still they are on paper or something on different tool, but it is not visually viewable. So after that, the next phase is a visual design. In the visual design, the visual designer will create something which they can show to their client based on the user experience what they have provided. After the visual design is completed, there is turn of front-end development, where front-end development is probably whatever visual design they have created, be it image or any tool, will convert into the HTML, CSS, and JS, which backend development can use and integrate into this SXA or any Sitecore instance, not specifically to SXA. So this is how it works, and at the end, once we have received the front-end assets and we have tried to identify what can be other components, what can be different templates and everything, we just start on developing on that. So we complete the whole development, and that is a large portion of time that you can see here. So, and at the end of what we develop, there is a portion that content entry, which we generally do in the life cycle after the whole development gets completed. So this whole duration is a long duration where only the backend development process is going on, nothing apart from that. So how we can reduce that with the SXA? So with the SXA, all the patterns, what we have right now will be in a different way. It is. So with the SXA, what happens is after the user experience and the visual design, that will always be first and cannot be done parallel, because they require a lot of client interactions and all those things, a lot of changes and everything. And once that is finalized, everything comes into action. So with this, the life cycle is like that visual design is created. Based on visual design, actually the backend development will start. In the backend development, what we will do is, based on the visual design we have on page, we will create a structure on the Sitecore SXA side using wireframe. We will not have actually the design, because front-end development has not been started yet. And that is the beauty of SXA. So what we'll do is we will create pages, we will add components, what we have pre-built into the toolbox, and we'll create the same structure as what we have in the visual design. And once that is done, we will be able to export everything using Creative Exchange. There's a feature of the SXA. Using that, we will be exporting our whole content with HTML, CSS, JavaScript, and everything, whole thing. And then we can pass on that to the front-end development, where front-end development team works separately than a Sitecore team. in a separate local environment. And then once they are done with the changes and all the CSS implementation, they can come back to the backend development team, where backend development team will import the theme back to the system. And then this is how the wireframe, what we have created initially by the backend development team using wireframe theme, can be converted to the actual theme what the front-end development team has provided. And along with that, while the front-end development team works on the design aspects of the site, the content entry can be done on whatever the components of backend development has created as part of the wireframe. So that's how this whole process works, and the time to market the website can be minimized gradually. So let's go to the next slide, what we have there. As you see, the benefits of the SXA. So first question comes to the mind, when to use the SXA? Is it better to use everywhere? Yeah, if you are starting a new Sitecore implementation, think of SXA. If you do not have obstacles, for example, SXA comes with a separate licensing. So if you do not have that obstacle of licensing, and you do not have an obstacle of implementing new things and new knowledge, your team has having proper knowledge of new technologies in Sitecore, and I think it is always great to think of SXA if we are starting a new implementation. If we are converting any existing implementation or something like what we are upgrading or something like that, and we thought of SXA, then it is a little difficult because we might need to change the whole structure of the site and how they have built the HTML structure and the CSS to fit that into the SXA. But if you are starting a new implementation, then it is best to think of SXA. But here we have some test scenarios where we can use the SXA. The first one is the multi-tenant and multi-sites. So if we have multi-sites, generally the management of the team and all these things are not really that superb in normal traditional manner before the SXA. So in that case, SXA gives us a great separation of design and everything in terms of theme. So we can use it as part of the multi-site and multi-site scenario. Then we have a relatively simple but content-rich site. The site should be simple. It should not have that much interaction with the third parties and everything and all those things. So it should be relatively simple, but should be rich in content. There might be lots of content there and lots of elements and lots of designs are there and everything. So in that scenario, we can use the SXA, and that can give you a great benefit. Then third is the site which requires a frequent design modification. While if you are having a site which a brand require a design modification in many number of times, then at the time it is better to use the SXA, because in using SXA, what you can do is create a new theme based on the old theme, pass on to your front-end development team. Front-end development team works on that, and at the end of their work, they will reply back to the backend team, and backend team can then import that theme back to the system, and then change just the theme from old one to new one. And then they realize that few things are working well and few things might need modification based on the new theme. So and they will make the changes based on the new theme, and the new theme gets implemented into the system. So in that case, I will prefer to use the SXA if we require design modification very frequently. And the last one is the microsites. So for example, we have a requirement of creating n number of sites dynamically, which will have a couple of pages and all those things, which is nothing but the content, and we will have the separate design implementation for all of them. So one microsite can have the different design, one second can have the different. Then we can probably use the SXA, and using SXA multi-site and theme, we can implement these very effectively. So these are the whole scenarios where we should definitely look for the creating site using SXA. If we have a talented team there and we have not any other obstacle, then we should look for that. The next agenda, we have the installation of the SXA. The installation of the SXA is relatively simple, like we do for any other module. Just we download the module from the Sitecore portal, then we install that using the installation wizard in the Sitecore. But we have to remember a few things if we are installing the Sitecore. So what are they? Let's start with the compatibility with the Sitecore version. So Sitecore Experience Accelerator have the different compatibility issues with the Sitecore version. So you need to keep in mind that if you are using this Sitecore version, then you might need to use the Sitecore Experience Accelerator, which will give you the best experience. So Sitecore Experience Accelerator is actually started as a separate product called as Zen Garden by the Cognified company, and then gradually evolved as a Sitecore Experience Accelerator within the Sitecore. The Sitecore introduced as 1.0, then 1.1, 1.2, 1.3, 1.3, update 1, and finally we have what we are using is 1.4. So here you are seeing the green mark and the black mark. So green mark are showing you that the Sitecore Experience Accelerator 1.0 and 1.1 are compatible with any version of the XP 8.2. So with any updates of XP 8.2, they are compatible. But rest of them are not green. So that ensures you that if you are working using plan to use Sitecore Experience Accelerator 1.4, then you might need to go for a specific version of the Sitecore Experience version. It might be work with all the different versions, which is not mentioned there in the installations and everywhere, but still, this is the insurance of that for this particular XP 8.2 version, the Sitecore Experience 1.4 will work with no issue. So this is how you need to choose wisely the Sitecore Experience Accelerator version for your XP. And after that, when we go to the download page of the Sitecore Experience Accelerator, we have this option to download from the different links. What they are for? One is we can clearly see that it is one for the 8.1 and one for the 8.2. But what we are seeing here is one is for the 8.2 and one is CD for 8.2. What that means? So that means that one package, the above one, is for the CM and second for the CD. So what are the difference between those two packages? So when you download both the packages, you will find there are very much difference between the size of both the packages. CD is relatively too small. But when you look into both the packages, you will realize that the Sitecore Experience for 8.2 and CD for 8.2 both are identical, except that for CD, you will not have that BLOPs and the Sitecore items into the package, because that will be eventually be published from the Sitecore content management system. So that will not be a part of the CD. Apart from that, everything which is there in the config and the DLLs are same for the 8.2 and CD for 8.2 packages. So going to the next, we have the Sitecore PowerShell extension. This is a prerequisite. We have to install the Sitecore PowerShell extension in order to SXA to work well. Yes, this is the right time to be friend of the PowerShell in Sitecore, because in the Sitecore Experience Accelerator, there has been extensive use of Sitecore PowerShell extension to perform the different kind of operations and scaffoldings. And probably in the coming versions of the Sitecore PowerShell extension will be used more as a core part of the Sitecore. So it's the best time to start on the PowerShell and look what we can do with that and what the Sitecore Experience Accelerator is doing with PowerShells. So you need to choose the proper version of the PowerShell extension for your Sitecore Experience Accelerator version, and you can see that from this table. It is available from Sitecore documentation as well. So going to the next screen, next. All right, so this is the package installation issue sometimes we face when we install any of the package. It is not specifically for the SXA, but the any package. So if your XDB is enabled, but it is not up and running, then your package installation will spinning up and spinning. So in that case, what will happen? You will not realize that whether actually the SXA is got installed or whether it is actually a problem with the SXA or a normal package installation issue. So if you are installing the SXA package or any of the package, before installing that, ensure that either XDB is disabled or MongoDB is up and running correctly. So in that case, you won't run into that small issues, and probably you can get started very early. So these are from the installation part. So relatively very simple, nothing fancy there. We can install that as like we install the normal packages. So a couple of things to keep in mind only. So next, let's move to the next portion of the presentation. So the next portion of the presentation is the component-based architecture versus SXA. So we know that in the Sitecore implementation, many people will be using the component-based architecture. Then how this SXA is different than the normal component-based architecture? Because we are habituated to use that component-based architecture, and now SXA has been introduced. So what are the key differences there? So we'll look into both the component-based architecture, what it is, example of that, and the architecture of the SXA, what it is, and example, and the difference between the component-based architecture and the SXA. So let's start with the component-based architecture. So in a simple word, a component-based architecture is nothing but not thinking of a page type, not thinking of a whole page, but thinking of individual elements on the page is known as a component-based architecture. So we'll not think about a page as about a page. What we'll think is about a page has title, about page has logo, about page has banners. So we'll think individual elements as and that will be called as the component-based architecture. So what the components do, and what is the components? The component is a small element which has the specifically relatively a single function that will not do anything else apart from that what they have been built for. For example, if there is a text component, then it will only render the text on the page. It will not be used for rendering the image on the page. So their functionality will be limited to specifically functions. So what the component do is a piece of functionality with a single responsibility, as we said, can be added to the Sitecore page from the content editor or experience editor as per the settings. So based on the placeholder settings, we can add these components on the page through a content editor or the experience editor. So that this will give the power to the experience editor or content authors to add the different components to the page. It is reusable, of course, it is reusable. That's why we have created a component-based architecture, because we can add this same component in the different pages based on requirements. It defines several restrictions. For example, the page design, which is a component, cannot be added. There will be some requirement where we will not read every component. For example, we have the left and the main content sections. So we will not add the banners in the left section. We'll add that in the main section. So there will be some restriction we have already set it on the placeholders. Based on that, it will work. And easy to accommodate the personalization feature on the components as compared to the page type. So this is one of the most important topic and feature, and the benefit it gives the component-based architecture is that more generally you define the component, it will give you the ability to personalize that particular small section as compared to the whole page type. You can do the personalization with the whole page type, but then you might need to work lots of custom code for that. But while we have the components, we can easily utilize the rule engine and can switch the presentation and the content for that particular component. So this is one of the example and one of the feature which component-based architecture gives us. What is the example of component-based architecture? So we have this demo site, and in the demo site we can use it if we can see how it looks in the real world. So this is the site which we are referring there. So it is having all the section from top to bottom. How we can define this as a modular architecture. So if we convert that into a component-based architecture, then what we generally tend to do is, this is the header part, which will have the logo and the navigation. Then we have the banner part. And at the bottom, we have the page content component. So we have divided these into 3 different parts. So whenever we require to add the header component, we can add this component into any page, and that will be visible. So that will be reusable part and component. And similarly, the different other components. So it will give you a great benefit to define and create once and use the many times. Then how the SXA architecture is different than the component-based architecture. Let's move on to the next slide. So in the component-based architecture, different kind of components which we see, the header, banner, different page content, all those things forms a page design. So a page consists of many different components. That's what we can say. And let's move to the next SXA, how that is different in terms of design and modification and all those things. So architecture of the SXA. So SXA2 follows the component-based architecture. Confusing, right? So first we are saying that component-based architecture, what is that, and what is the architecture of the SXA, and comparison between those two. And now we are saying that the SXA also used the component-based architecture. But yeah, SXA used the component-based architecture, but in a real way. What it has shown us the real way how to use the component-based architecture in the real world. By doing more generic components, what we have seen in the previous example for the component-based architecture, we converted that to header, banner, and the page component, kind of different components. But what the SXA does is to create a more generic component than a header, banner, and the page content. So defining a more generic component so that can be utilized at many places. Then many component comes with the variants so that you can make the changes in the behavior of the components. For example, a simple banner where we need to show that in a different way for some pages, and for some set of the pages you might need to show that in a different way. So that you can do with the SXA, as SXA comes with the rendering variants. That's one of the functionality which SXA provides, which we will look into the practical section. But for now, just to understand the SXA and what it gives us, we will be referring that rendering variants. Apart from that, it provides options to specify different styles to component based on the requirement. So we have a banner component, let's say, or a page content component. And in one of the page, it requires a color red, and one of the pages requires a color blue. Then what we can do is, in the normal traditional manner, probably we have to define the rendering parameters, and based on that, we need to define all the functions. If this is the parameter selected there, then do this. It is a parameter selected there, then change the color to blue. And for Sitecore, SXA provides is, it provides you to select styles which you can specifically define to a component. For example, a component page content has been added to page A and page B. Then for the page A, you will select the classes that is red. And for B, you will select the class from the component properties that is blue. And in simple way, we can change the colors based on different styles. So one of the biggest advantage is rendering variants, the styles, and all those things to change the markup of the HTML dynamically in the SXA. And SXA structures page using page structure components like row splitter, column splitter, and the container. So how the SXA page builds, we will see the in the later part of the presentation with the grid and all these components here. But for now, we can understand that we can create a different kind of structure dynamically based from in the SXA website. While in the traditional website, we used to do is we have the main layout, we have the different components, for example, one column, two column, three column, and all the different layouts which we can add based on the different kind of page we have. While in the SXA, what we'll do is we will have one page, then we'll dynamically create the different layout based on the row splitter, column splitter, and all those things. We might not need to restrict that to particular limited number of layouts what we used to do in the earlier development prior to SXA. So this is how the Sitecore architecture of SXA is different than the normal component-based architecture. While it is most of the similar, but in the Sitecore SXA, it is a more generic components than the normal traditional manner. Let's see the example of the Sitecore SXA. So the same site, if we try to accomplish using the Sitecore SXA, then what our components will be? Instead of the header component in the normal traditional manner, we have the image component and the navigation component, two separate components in the Sitecore SXA to form the header. Similar way, we have created a banner component in a traditional manner, while we will not be creating any component in the SXA. We by default have the page list component, which lists to different items, and using that, we can achieve this banner. So this is the advantage it gives to utilize the different kind of components to different purposes. And we have at the bottom, we have the rich text component, which we can use at any page or anywhere, which we can have the local data source or can be a common content which we can utilize anywhere else. And the SXA page consists of different elements than the normal component-based architecture do. While normal component-based architecture, we used to have the different components like header, footer, banner, and that forms the page design. While in SXA, it is not the case. We have the more generic components, which is image component, rich text component, navigation, page list, and all those things. So what we can do is, in the SXA, we used to create that components, that is the image component and navigation component, and then based on that, we create a partial design, which is called as, for example, header, which consists image component and the navigation component. And this kind of different partial designs eventually forms a page design. So a page design is being populated in SXA using partial designs, and partial design might have different components pre-built, which is there in the toolbox. So this is how it is different. We will see the page design and partial design in detail in the later stage of this presentation, but this is the how page structures in the SXA. So you might have clear idea now to how normal component-based architecture is different than the SXA. Now let's move on to the SXA and keep saying the terminologies of the SXA. So we'll look the different terminology what we will generally speak in SXA, and we should be aware of that. So that those are the toolbox, which is we seen that we have different components which we can drag and drop from the toolbox to the page. Then we have the grid layout, what it is and how it affects in the page design and structure. Then we have themes, what is themes and the type of themes. We have the page and partial design as we discussed, how they are being created and how they create some page design. Then we have creative exchange. We discuss once what it is, and what can be done and what will not be done with the creative exchange. Then we also have an asset optimizer. So what optimizer do with the assets. So we'll see each and every topic in detail. It starts with the toolbox. As you all know, that toolbox is consists of different components which you can drag and drop onto the page. If you are not able to see this toolbox, what you can do is in the Experience Editor, on the View tab, you can select the design and the drag and drop. Then you will be able to see. By default, it will be selected, so you don't need to worry about that. Components are grouped into different structure and categories, we can say, for easy access based on the type of the components. For example, in the screen, you can see that we have the page structure, page content, navigation, media, maps, and such. So all the components related to search will reside into that search category. So might not need to visit the whole toolbox and long scroll bars. What we just need to do is just expand the search category and we'll find all the components related to search there. Similarly, we have all the components which we can use to frame the page structure is there in the page structure. Container, divider, edit bar, mod panel, iframe, splitters, all those things. So you can add the components in the Experience Editor using this toolbox, or you can also use the traditional way that selecting a particular placeholder and clicking on the Add Here button, and that's still there. But for ease of usage, you have this another option to drag and drop from the toolbox. And this is what the toolbox is. One of the key part of the SXA, but SXA is not equal to toolbox. Remember that. Next we have is a grid layout. This is very interesting topic and one of the big part in creating a Sitecore page structure. So generally, what as a backend developer, we might not have worried about the how page structures and how the different layouts and all those things works, because we generally get that from the front-end developer. Front-end developer writes different kind of layout, different kind of media queries to support that in the different kind of devices and all those things. So we have never worried about that. What we just do is we have just created a component based on the HTML they have provided, and we just use the CSS and JS what they have provided, and we just include that into the page. So we never worried about that. But what SXA gives is gives the power to you to select the different kind of layouts, what you can do, create using SXA. So grid layout is the basics of SXA page structure. So that is used to divide the page into equal columns, number of columns, which is 12 number of columns. So what you can do is you can divide a page into 6 column, 1 column, 111 column, 10 column, a different kind of structure what you require. So basically divides the page into equal columns. Depending on the grid system you use, we have different kind of grid system, which you'll see in the next slide, that what different grid system we have. Based on that, the different kind of HTML markup will be generated. So let's see what kind of grid system we have. So while we create a new site, we have this option to select one of the grid which we can use in the project. Initially, Sitecore 1.0 came with the grid 960, which was supporting 960 pixel only. And now we have these 3 different grids to choose. One is the Bootstrap, which the front-end developer loves nowadays. Then we have Foundation and grid 960, which is still there. So based on that, whatever grid we select, we create a page, we add the splitters, we cross splitter, column splitter, we divide the page into different sections, and we might have different our HTML markup based on this different grid what we have selected. So it is more important to be aware that changing the grid system once we have created a site, different kind of many pages, HTML has been done, front-end team has worked on the theme, we have imported back, and then if we realize that we want to change this grid layout, then it will be really difficult to do that because we might need to change manually everywhere the markup what it has been generated, because one grid might have the different markup, might have the other. So it is a better to choose it before you start the project than the middle of the project. So choose wisely while you select the grid. Bootstrap is the most common one which we are using nowadays. You can go with that if you are playing this with SXA. So these are the three different grid and how we define the HTML structure. For example, Bootstrap. In Bootstrap, what we have done is we have created a simple container, and in the simple container, we have added a row splitter, which divides container or main layout into two row. Then in the first row, what we have done is added a column splitter, so which divides the first row into two columns. So you can see the HTML. What we have is the for the row we have classes row component. We have column splitter. Then for the columns we have called access 6. So we have created two columns which both span the 6 columns. So total 12 columns. This is how the HTML is generated. Second one is grid 960. So if we use this grid and perform the similar action that add a row splitter which will divide the main container into two parts, two row, then add the column splitter into the first row which will divide the first row into two columns. The similar action, then we will have this kind of HTML generated. We can see that there are difference in class names. For example, we used to have call SX6 for Bootstrap, but now for the grid 960 we have grid 6. So if we have created the different pages based on the structure and then we realize that we need to change the grid layout, then we might need to change all these markups manually, which tends to have many of errors. So choose your grid system before you start the project. And the last one is the foundation. It does have the different classes, that is small 6 and columns and everything. So grid layout is the basic part of SXA page structure that creates a structure and divides page into equal columns. And we can use the different kind of page structure categories of components which we see in Toolbox to drag and drop and create a different kind of structure. It is one column, two column, rows, splitter, column splitters, containers, and all those things. This is how you design the layout of the page, different kind of layout of the different pages. So let's move on to another topic, which is themes. One of the most important topic in terms of the designing of the website. So when you create a site into SXA, we will see this in practical once we do complete this presentation. So we do not need to worry about that, how to create a site and how to stream. So we'll just see how themes is important here. So for example, when you create a site, you can have this option to create a new theme. Check that box. So you will create a new site for your site, whatever site you are creating. Give your theme name based on your site, and below that you will have the themes usable by this site. So whatever site you are creating, a new site will be able to use this number of themes. So wireframe comes by default selected that, and don't need to remove it because we will eventually first start with the wireframe theme. We'll create all the pages, page structures, and then we will selecting the theme what we have created here in the new theme name. We will export that, and the front-end designer works on that, and we will import that back to the system. Wireframe theme cannot be imported or exported. So wireframe do not need to remove there. and we can select the all different themes from the list which you want to use in that site. For example, the site have two sections. One section might have a different theme, one section might have a different theme. Then you can select the all those different themes here, which will eventually be available in the drop down for the theme selection, where you can select for this particular page design, what theme we need to use. So whatever theme you want for this site, select that, keep the wireframe as it is, create a new site for your site when you create a new site. So that's what we need to do here. So moving forward, understanding the themes more better, that's why we really love the SXA. Because in the normal traditional manner, what we do is we used to have the content folder, asset folder, where everything related to CSS, JS, and all those images and all those things resides there. Or in the media library, for example, images comes to media library. Then how themes is different in the SXA. So in the SXA, themes comes with the two major types. So one is base theme and one is site themes. What is base theme? So base theme consists of the different kind of themes which forms a page and which is part of the platform. For example, these are the different base themes we have in the base theme folder. We have being maps, JSON, main theme, variants, sticky notes, search theme, editing theme, and all those things. So what comes as part of base themes? What are the most important themes to consider? So if we consider the most important themes in the base themes, so those are core libraries, then main theme, and grid themes. These three are the most important in the base themes. So let's see what each themes do. For example, a core library will consist of the third-party libraries to construct a site. For example, a jQuery UI, modernizer, and all those things. So that we have to have used that base theme, which will have the core libraries. That's why we do not need to add those core libraries again and again. So we'll be using this base theme in our site theme. So in base theme, another theme which is important is main theme. The main theme consists of the script and styles that are part of the platform, that are part of the SXA functionality, we can say. It all comes with the main theme, which is required. And the last one, the most important base theme, is a grid theme. Grid theme is responsible to generate the HTML markup, what we have seen in the previous slides, based on this theme. So grid theme will have the different kind of theme, what we see in three different kind of themes. So based on that, it will generate the word markup. So these three base themes are most important and required in every theme which we create specific to our site. So let's move on to this site-specific themes. But before we move on, let's understand that we never required to change these base themes. We should not do that. Because when we export the themes and all those things using creative action, which we'll see later, the base themes will also get exported. Doing any change in the base theme is not recommended. If you really think that you need to have a different version of the same library or something which is there in the base theme, what you can do is you can create a base theme, copy base theme, and make changes in that and use that as part of your site themes basing. So that's how you can make changes, but you do not need to make these changes directly into this base theme, because you might lose all your changes into next upgrade or SXA version upgrade, because these are the platform wide. So you might not require to change anything in the base theme. What you can do is you can create a copy and use that as a part of your site theme. Let's. So this is what the demo, what you are seeing here. Sorry. So this is the site theme. What you are seeing on the screen is a site theme, and you can see that site theme have a field which is a base themes. Which kind of base theme will be selected for the site theme? So by default, this all base theme comes selected, which is core library, main theme, map.js connector, maps, and subs theme. We do not need to select the grid layout explicitly because we have already selected which kind of grid we need to use when we create a site. So based on that, that theme will by default will get included. So these are the themes which will require as a base theme. If you require any additional theme, you can add that to the base theme folder and can include that into this field for the site theme. Let's see what is site theme. Site theme are specifically created for the specific site. For example, here in the screen, you can see that I have created a demo site. So for the demo site, whatever design aspects I will require, I will add that into this demo theme. So demo theme is actually a site theme, which includes different kinds of folders. For example, gulp, SAS, fonts, images, scripts, styles, and all those things. So which will have the specific things related to your site theme, which is demo theme. So if we see which are the different site themes, then in the different kind of site theme, we probably have the theme what we created for the site. Then we have the basic, basic 2, and wireframe, as you can see in the screen. So basic is the old version where it's a prior version prior to the Creative Actions Lab. It does not support the Creative Action Lab, so it is deprecated and not recommended to use. Another is the basic 2. The basic 2 is a theme which is similar to the site theme what we created demo. So demo has been created as a copy of the basic 2 theme. And then we have the wireframe theme. The wireframe theme is by default selected in the theme section for the sites as we saw in the earlier slide. Then in theme, what we need to keep in mind for the assets is that as compared to the traditional version in this version of SXA, the assets comes as part of the items. It is not there physically on the file system. It is there as items. So one of the things is the order matters. So in folder scripts, if you have animate item there, which is jazz, and then we have bootstrap min, then it means that the animate will be loaded into the page earlier than a bootstrap min. So you might need to consider that the dependent libraries should be included earlier in the folder than the later. And in the way is the top to bottom. However you see in your content tree that in the same order they will be loaded into the page. So let's move to the page in partial design. This is one of the important part. So let's start with the partial design. The partial design is a subpart of page design. As you can see, we have seen and in the comparison that the page design consists of the partial designs. So partial design is a subpart of the page design. Partial design is also reusable. The header partial design what we created, we can use for the each and every different page design. So it is reusable. What it does is helping creating consistent styling and design because we create once and used everywhere. So it will have the consistent style design and changing at one place will affect to every places. So multiple partial design forms of page designs. As we see, there are multiple partial designs like header partial designs, footer partial designs, which also eventually have the different components will form a complete page design. These partial designs can be created and assigned to the page design from the content editor and the experience editor. See how the partial design looks in the content editor. If we, for example, we have added here the header partial design. So header partial design will have the option to select what base partial design you can have. So you can also have the partial design as a base of another design, partial design. For example, you have the header and the sidebar, where if you add the sidebar, the header should by default add. So what you will do is you will add a partial design called header, you will add a partial design called sidebar, and in the sidebar you will select base partial design as header. So once you include the sidebar partial designs, you will also have the header partial designs there. In the Expense Editor, you will see in the Expense Accelerator tab that partial designs, what partial design this page has. And you can see that empty header and the metadata are the partial design added to specifically this page. Now moving on to what is page design. The page design is a group of several partial designs as we see earlier in the partial designs. Page design can be assigned to a content item. For example, for a home page, we have created a page design called home. In the home page, we will only require header, banner, and the footer partial designs. So what we'll do is in the page design home, for the home content item, we will select the partial designs, which is header, banner, and the footer, and we will assign that home page design to the home content item. So for the home content item, the design will be managed to page design, which is called home. The page design can also be assigned to the data templates directly. So for example, we have the product pages. So we have n number of products. In that case, we might not be creating a page design and then assigning to each and every product pages. Well, we don't do that. What we'll do is we'll create a page design called product for the product pages, and we will assign that to the product template, data template. And then that's how we will be managing it. The designs of the different kind of pages with the same template from using the template level assignment of the page design. So similarly, page design can also be created and assigned to page from Content Editor and the Experience Editor. So this is the default page design we have. So if you can see, we have the partial designs field where we have selected empty metadata in header. So these three partial designs will be there into page design. So when we assign this default page design to any content item or any data template, so that item, when we visit that item, it will have these all partial fields, partial designs. So in the page design, you can see this is the template to design mapping. So here in this section, we will map the data template to the page design. For example, we see in that home page, it is a kind of home page template will have the default theme or a default page design. And we will have another product, which is another template, which is product, and it will have the another page design rather than the default. So just a mapping to the data template and the page design you can do from here. And you can also do a mapping of the page design and the theme. So first we will do a mapping of data templates and the page design. For example, a product data template will have product new page design, and product new page design will have demo theme. So if we want to add another theme, for example, another style, then what we can do is we can create a different page design, which is product all, and we will select the different theme for that product all rather than a demo. So that's how we will manage the whole sequences. You can see the page design in the Expense Editor that this particular page has defined default page design. You can insert page design from there and assign different page design from there also. Another feature we have is creative action, which is whatever work the backend development has done using a wireframe, then they will export everything, the size structure and all those things using creative action visa and then hand over that to the front-end developer, and front-end developer works on that. And then once the front-end developer completes their work, they can be re-imported to the site, and that's how the styles and the look like of the website will be built. So in the creative exchange, we will export theme. And what will it include? It includes HTML, CSS, JS, fonts, and images. So front-end developer can work on static HTML, CSS, and JS files on a local folder, which we have given to them after exporting. So they do not need to work along with the Sitecore. So they require minimal Sitecore knowledge. The changes can be imported back using import functionality once they have done with the work. For the front-end development, you can import back these to the site. This is how front-end developer does not require interact to Sitecore, and with HTML provided, they can preview also the pages from the local folder. This is how the creative actions export functionality looks like. It has a different kind of selection. What device you want to select, you want to either export the site branch or single page, in which language, what is the site context, either include page buckets, items or not, and the mod, which is very important. Because if you export as an end user mod, you will be still able to have HTML, CSS, JS, and all those things, but you won't be able to make change and import back. So for you to work on separate folder and import back, you have to select the agency drop in the mod section. Then we have what we can do and what we cannot do in the creative action. The creative action, what we can do is we can add, edit, and modify the images within files within the media folder, library folder. So in the exported folder, we will have the media library folder where we can add or change the image. You can add the classes where in the HTML, what we have exported, and where you will find that add your CSS classes here. At that places, you can add your own classes. You can add, modify CSS files. You can add, modify JS files. You can add or modify the font files. What you cannot do with the creative action is you cannot change the HTML structure, because HTML structure in SXA has been built using the components and the rendering variants. So it will not be very easy to make this change and reflect there in the Sitecore items and at the different places. So this is not supported to change anything in the HTML structure. Deleting existing class will not be imported back. So you cannot delete the class. Changing the content is also not supported. So once if you have exported and there in the HTML you have some content, you change that, that won't be imported back, because that might be coming from different kind of data source. The system might not aware. So that is not supported. Wireframe theme, if you export with the wireframe theme, that can be exported, but it cannot, when you import back, the changes made to that will not get imported back, because those are the restricted themes. Then modifying the base theme feature, which is also not supported, because those last two, wireframe and the base themes, are restricted themes. So any changes made to them will not get imported back. Then we have asset optimizer. So what asset optimizer do is it will minify and merge your CSS and JS files when enabled. It improves the end user experience, reduces the amount of data to be transferred, groups the assets into a single file and caches on server. You can either have concatenate and minify, both the options. So for example, here for the scripts, we have mod selected as concatenate and minify. And so when the asset optimizer is enabled, it will concatenate everything and minify everything into one file. Similarly for the styles. This is how one of the things is that with the SXA, for the different components, we have the different styles in the theme. So for example, we have the rich text component, for that we have the rich text style sheet. So we have many number of styles and styles and scripts to be included into the page. So when asset optimizer is disabled, this number of the styles and scripts will be included into the page, where as compared to it is enabled, we will have only a few number of items included in the page, which will have the data and number of requests made to the server. And now finally it's a time for the demo. It took a little longer, but it's okay. So I have already created this instance for the demo purposes. So in demo, what we'll see is basically create tenant, create site, create theme, create page and partial designs, asset optimization, creative actions. Let's just start with the tenant. Tenant is the first point where you want to group a different kind of sites into different tenants. So for example, I have already installed these tenants. So I have this SXA demo tenant and the showcase tenant. Let's add, right click on the content item and you will have the option for the tenant and tenant folder. Tenant folder is used to group different kind of tenants. We'll just create a tenant here. Demo tenant. And it will have all these features which you can select and deselect based on your function and requirement. So when we create a tenant and in the backside of the Sitecore, it executes several PowerShell scripts and creates whatever it requires. This is done. So now we have, if we see the demo tenant, we have few important fields here which will tell you that these are the template sections, these are the theme sections where everything will be stored. So if you go to here, if you go to video library themes, then we have this demo tenant. So everything which will create site and site specific theme will reside into this demo tenant folder. So in the demo tenant, let's add a new site. You can also group sites in a different grouping using site folder. They'll just create a site. So in the general tab, we have the option for the site name, host name, virtual folder, and language, as we find in normal way in the system sites section of the Sitecore config. That's all been provided here. You can create a demo site. Then all the features which required for this demo site, you can enable disable the function but do not require specifically for this site. For example, a JSON, which is used for having the extracting the data and using that in the mobile apps, and we do not require that, then we can unselect that feature. Then in the theme section, create a new theme, demo theme, and the wireframe will be selected. I do not want any of these themes. And if we want, then let's just add for a demo purpose the demo theme. So we have these two themes to choose from, and the one which is a demo theme. And the final but important is the grid. We will go with the bootstrap. So if you can see, this is performing a different option, creating a site theme and all those things. So which in the backend use the Sitecore PowerShell scripts using scaffolding to perform different kind of options. So while working on these, creating a site and publishing and viewing those things, I was I was unable to find the created site into the Sitecore config site section. So when you create a site using SXA, it will actually not be stored in the Sitecore.config site section. It has a different mechanism to store sites as item in the Sitecore content tree. Like we have a probably multi-site manager module in the Sitecore marketplace, which does the same thing for the normal traditional way, where we add a number of sites and it will create the sites in Sitecore item. It will not add that into the Sitecore config, so it will not recycle your app pool. So you can create any number of sites without recycling your app pool and restarting the application. So similarly, SXA follows that, and it also creates the site in the site content tree rather than a config. We'll see that. So what we'll do is in the practice demo here, in a short period of time, we'll try to implement any of such element into a demo site. It took little time while creating a site because it creates a different kind of feature and folders and all those things while creating a new site. So we have new style created, new site, which is demo site. We have this number of folders by default included. In the demo site, if we see, it will have the fields that where the media library for the site is and where the theme for the site is. You can find that at this location. So if we refresh these themes, we have demo tenant, demo site, and the demo theme. So as we see that it will not add the site entry into your config, what it will do is it will create an items. So where it will create an items? So in the settings, in the site grouping, the demo site. So where this will be all the fields which you can find in the Sitecore config site section will be there. So target hostname, virtual folder, stat item, and all those things. Then how it will read them. So Sitecore has SXA has a different site manager, so that will read all the sites from here. So this Sitecore SXA site manager, which you can also access from PowerShell Toolbox, SXA site manager, which will give you information that this is the site which have this hostname which get resolved, and this is getting overridden by the previous site. So we created a demo site, but due to this site, will not get resolved. When we hit the normal SXA, this INT site will be resolved. So what we need to do is we need to move it up. Select, move up. So as now we see that demo site has the green light. So when we now hit the SXA, demo site should be resolved. But before that, we need to publish, and we'll publish everything. Publish site. Published, and if we access, and should display this site what we created just now. So this is the demo site. By default, with the wireframe theme, it will look like this. So let's just open this home page into the Accelerator. If you quickly see that till that what the different folder comes, then data folder generally have the different kind of folders based on the component, and based on that component, all the data for that component, which is a global data source, will reside here in the data folder. In the presentation folder, we have this different kind of functionality for this SXA specific functionality, which is page design, partial design, there's all the settings, styles, and all those things you will find here. In the setting, we have different setting section which is being used for the constructing the site and specific feature. So if you see here in the demo site, we have this grid system, and we have this toolbox enabled. We have by default page design selected here. We do not have any new partial design. Let's create a partial design. Partial design. What's the name of the partial design? Which is here. So the header partial design, which is itself is an item which will have its own presentation details. So in that case, what we can do is we can click here to add any component, or can use any component from the toolbox and drag and drop them. So if it's media, image reusable. So before doing that, what we want to do is we want to create a page structure first. So what we'll do is we add the row splitters and the column splitters, and then we will add the image. So for that, let's add the row splitter, or let's just add only column splitters. So column splitter has divided the header placeholder into two parts. Now look at it. So you will have two columns here. So in what we'll want is the splitter columns and its properties, which will have the grid system. This is column 1 layout, and in the column 1 layout, what we'll do is for the desktop, let's have 3 columns, and for the column 2 for the desktop, let's have 9 columns. So as we see that second column has the 9 column span, and first column has the 3 column span. Column 1. So let's just add the image into the column 1. So you will be asked for the place and choose the content for the particular component. If there isn't any content, you can create a new content there. Image reusable. Okay. Now we have this. We can change the image. Let's upload. Interesting. We added an image and different image, but it looks like a wireframe here because we have by default a wireframe selected here for this default page design. If you want to use, if you see that in the Dropbox, we have these three options which we have selected while creating the site. So if we select the demo theme, then we will actually see the image. So this is the image. So what generally we will do is we will create the whole site structure and all the pages using a wireframe. Then we will change the wireframe to the page to the site theme, and we will export that. How we can do export using Creative Exchange feature. So it will give you the option to export the site, branch, or single page, and all the options. So if we will do zip file export. So it will export all these pages, HTML, CSS, and everything into a zip file. So what we can do is we can just make changes in the HTML, CSS, or JS, what we have exported, and let's just do right now. Let me share my another window. So what we'll do is we'll just extract these. When we extract that, we will have this index.html, that is the home page what we have only right now. Then this will have the base theme feature themes. In the themes, we have the demo tenant and demo site, demo theme. And if we go to the index, if you want to add any styles, then we'll add here or make changes into any existing styles. Same way for the scripts and all those things. And Sculpt and all those things is for the Creative Action Lab, which can be implemented where any change made here directly will reflect to the site. And if you want to add any new classes, then you can add here. So if we see, you will have this section to add your CSS class here, where you can add your own class, which is a class. Now, we will want to zip that again. Let's delete this existing zip file. Zip this again. And import back.
Hey Pratik.
Yep, Dinesh.
We are reaching at the end of the session time.
Yeah.
That's okay. I think you can still continue.
Okay.
How much time do you think you will be needing more?
I think I will require only additional 15 minutes from now.
Okay. Okay. No problem.
All right. So what we do is we import that zip file back into the system. Desktop, SXA, zip file. Next, and it will import everything from the zip to the actual theme folder. So it will give the list of things what have been changed. So something which from add to your class to the my class has been changed. So if we refresh this, then we will be able to find that my class being assigned to this image. So that should be assigned to that image, the my class what we have assigned. Let's just publish everything. So you can see that a home page is still not have the image because what we have done is the default theme does not have this header selected. So what we can do is from here, presentations, page designs, default, add this header. And now when you access the home page, it should have this image visible there. So this is how the partial design and page design works. So generally the recommendation is to divide your site into many partial designs, reuse that partial design, add the relevant components into the partial designs, and assign that partial designs back to the page design. And page design will be assigned either to content item if we have simple one item, for example, homepage item, or the data template item, which we have, for example, product item. Now what we see is we created a tenant, site theme, page design, and partial designs, and all those things you can play with here. And one of the things is what we have is we do also have the rendering variant functionality. So for example, if you select this image and if you want to display any alternate text or something like that for some page, then you can change the variant of that image. For example, image reusable control variant default. We can create another variant and select that variant. So based on that variant, we will be having a different markup here. And the other functionality what Sitecore SXA provides is if you want to give specific style to specific element, and just performing. Let's go to the header. Okay. Now this is the styles. So if you want to give specific style to this, then you can select anyone from listed, and you can select this for this component, and it will get applied. So you can add the styles whatever you required into the style section, where you will have all the different component specific styles you can add from here. Style, any value of name of the style or name of the class is what you have, you can assign that, and you can assign that back to the component here. So in that case, you will have the ability to control how component will be marked up using the rendering variants is one of the most important part, and the styles. So I think that's it from my side for now, because it looks like the covering of the other aspect related, like the rendering variants, then the styles, then how to create a custom renderings and custom rendering variants, and all those things will require big amount of time. It can be done in a second session. So from this session, probably you will be able to get started, and if you have already get started, then you will have probably some better information on the different streams, different terminologies and all those things, what cannot be done and all those things. And probably we can have the another session, or we will have the all blogs and all those things where we can refer for the further detailed functionalities. So that saying, let's move on to the presentation back. And after the demo, we have these links we have with what I have referred. One is the Sitecore document portal, and second is the showcase. The showcase is really important, and what we have for the Helix is Habitat, and for the SXA we have the showcase. For example, if I have already installed that showcase site into my local, so if we browse that, and it is the full site created based on the SXA. So you can refer this site and can see how each component has been worked, and you can set up the similar way for your site. So you can take this site for your reference. It has also it has all the information related to feature and all the components, what comes by default. So how you can use them, what comes with the variants, what does not come, and all those information. So this is very useful. Now moving back to the presentation now. And there are a few different links which is useful, and it gives you information on the different customization or creating your own rendering variants and all those things, some issues which they might have faced and all those things. So it is very easy to get started on site SXA, but if you are performing some specific task and stuck there, then there is a little documentation available there. So I believe that in coming 5 or 6 months, probably that will increase a lot because people have started looking at the SXA. So we might have the mature documentation for the SXA. That is from my side for this session. Thank you all of you again for taking your time today and joining us, especially for Indians having Dussehra today and the festival day and joining this session, keeping that apart. So thank you everyone.
So Pratik, thank you very much for taking a day weekend and giving us a session.
My pleasure.
I definitely can say I have learned SXA now. At least I can have a quick start on it. So thank you for the session. This is just a reminder for the Sitecore community and the viewers. If you want to present on Sitecore Sugin, you can get in touch with the Sugin team. We can be reached at Twitter or sitecoresugin.india@gmail.com. So drop us a note and we will be in touch with you. Till then, see you. Goodbye.
Thanks everyone.